Hey guys, it's Nadia from LiaDia Designs. We're back with another tutorial. This time around we're going to be learning how to add crystals to our pours. So in this case we're going to be doing a cheeseboard style, and you'll see here that there's crystals running through here. So I'm just going to show you how I do this. This was actually already colored stones, but today I'm going to be showing you how I actually color clear stones. So this way it's a bit more flexible, and it's really what I use majority of the time. So this way I just, I'm able to, make the stones any color that I want. So this way I don't have to be dependent on having, a variety of different stones. I do carry stones for other type of textures and other type of projects, but in terms of my boards, this is the most common stones that I use, and it's basically glass. So we're going to jump right in, but first I just want to show you what we're going to be using. So we have Crystal Resin's 1:1 resin, which you guys know I love. And then we have some pigments here. Again, you can use any colors of your choice. I'm going to be using these colors, so it's like a slate blue and a pearl white, some silver glitters, and some iridescents. I'm going to throw those in a little bit as well. We'll have our mixing cups, and of course our PPE. And again, you guys know how I feel about this, so it's really important, guys. So we have our chemical filtering mask, goggles, gloves. I have my industrial strength exhaust fan there, and I'm going to be using a heat gun, and probably not the torch, but I have the torch here just in case. But again, guys, using PPE, personal protective equipment while working with resin, regardless of what the companies say in terms of it being safe, or if it's non-toxic, or low fumes, or any of the claims that they're making. Again, those may be very true, but this is your health you're talking about, and if you're being exposed to resin over lengthy periods of time, it just makes sense. I mean, it is a chemical reaction, so we just want to make sure you guys are protected, especially anyone who's new and it might be getting conflicting information. This is one of the things that you want to kind of side on, being a little extra precautious about it, instead of just taking a chance and a risk and hoping for the best. Again, as I've mentioned before, there are people who have not used personal protective equipment and have worked with resin for many years or for many months, and they claim it's perfectly fine, they're not affected, and that again might be true, but that is not the case for everybody. And definitely there's been cases of people who have said that, and maybe it's been a couple years, or maybe it's been a few months, and then suddenly out of the blue, major reaction, right? Or it just starts creeping up on them and they just don't realize it, and then suddenly one day they have a major reaction. And those kind of things are pretty serious, so we want to just make sure we're not taking those risks, right? So anyways, guys, like I said, that's where I stand on this issue, and I know a lot of people still ask me about it, if it's safe. I mean, we're not saying that it's going to be, very dangerous for you to use, but it's just, protect yourself properly and you'll be fine. So anyways, let's get started, guys. Okay guys, so we're ready to get started on pouring our resin and putting crystals on this board. We're going to be doing a section of the board, probably about here, maybe a little bit more. We'll see how the resin flows. So we're going to be putting crystals mostly in the corner, and then we're just going to add some resin to kind of add to the design on this side as we go in a little bit, and then we'll let the resin kind of do what it wants. And so yeah, so pretty basic. In terms of prep for the board, all I've done is I've added tuck tape to the bottom. You can use masking tape or painter's tape, as a lot of other people do. For this particular type of board, I generally use the tuck tape because I find the other tapes don't work as well for me. So it is a little bit more tricky to get off the board, but at least I know the seal is there and it holds onto the board really well, because this particular type of board is it's pretty much a finished board. Like, I buy them from retail stores and they're sold as is to use them as cheese boards, so they're completely finished. They likely already have some sort of seal on them, and I'm just adding resin on top of that. So because of that, I'm not doing any extra prep on the board here. And I've discussed this in previous videos before, that if you have an unfinished board or a board that hasn't been sealed, you're probably going to want to do a little bit more in terms of prepping for the board. So, whether it's, painting on an acrylic layer, or whether it's if you're using canvas, or, you want to put gesso on it, you can decide how you want to
prep your board, but just basically the reason for doing that is just to kind of seal, you know, any of the gaps that could be in the wood that's going to have pockets of air, because the pockets of air are going to bubble up and then, you know, cause disturbances in your resin while it's trying to dry. So that's the purpose of wanting to do that. Plus it gives it a better finish. It sits better on the board. It flows a little bit better. Like again, because these boards are pretty much, you know, finished with some sort of sealant already on them, I usually don't find too much of an issue. I may have a little bit of an issue here because of this knot. There might still be some air bubbles in here, but again, it's not usually something I'm overly concerned about with the type of pouring and art that I do. And in this case, we might actually have some of the crystals and glitter and different things covering this. So even if there is a bit of disturbance, it's not going to, you know, completely change the design. And if you've seen some of my other tutorials, you'll know sometimes I add patterns within my resin, or then I also, you know, once the resin is dry, then I'll go ahead and, you know, paint patterns or other designs, peacock feathers, you know, flowers, other things on top of the resin. So again, the base layer of resin to me is usually not I'm not as worried about it, just in terms of if there are any kind of disturbances or little ripples or bubbles. So again, this is just to show you how to kind of do the basic pour and then to add the crystals and how I color them. And then what you do from that point on is up to you. So let's get started. Okay, to get started, we have a bunch of things we're going to be doing. So again, as you guys know, my favorite resin is crystal resin, so I'll be using the 1-to-1 for that. The 1-to-1 with crystal resin has about a 40 to 45 minute working time. So in this case, we're not, you know, too concerned about the working time. We just want to make sure we can get it all mixed and poured before that time. I'm going to be using a couple different pigments. So I have the blue slate from Black Diamond. I also have their diamond silver pearl, so I'm going to be using those colors, and then I'm going to be adding some other glitters as well. So this is just like, you know, some glitter I found at Michael's. We have the Martha Stewart glitter, and I also have I may or may not be adding these two, but I just added them into the mix just in case. This is the Advanced Metallics Large Aluminum, and then I also have just some, you know, regular iridescent flakes that I got as a sample. So so these here are pretty cool. They're actually made of metal, not just, you know, plastic or anything like that. So again, Advanced Metallics, very cool. I use them a lot for a lot of my other pours. So now I'm going to go ahead and I got glitter all over the board. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing up my resin. For something like this, because we're just doing a portion of the board, I'm probably going to do maybe about 6 ounces. I might go a little bit more, but usually around 6 or 7. For, again, what we're doing here is going to be fine. Yeah, so let's get going. Okay guys, so I did measure about 7 ounces of resin into this cup. It might be a little bit more than we need, but I just figured just in case we don't want to run out. And I'm going to go ahead and mix this. My resin says that you should mix it about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm going to be doing that. But definitely check the resin that you're using and see what it says about it mixing. And then once I finish mixing this, I'm going to go ahead and divide it into the different colors and mix the pigments into it. And then we'll be ready to get started with the pouring. So I'm going to go into super speedy fast mode, and then we'll see you on the other side when we're actually pouring. So we've got everything mixed now. I did add another color in. It is called Blue Violet from Black Diamond. So just in case we wanted to get a little bit of extra depth with a darker color in there, in case all the colors end up blending a little too much. So so I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to do white as the main color, and then all the other colors are going to be kind of accents and, you know, streaks and stuff within the white. So our crystals will, you know, will be white for the most part, like kind of like, you know, with a whitish type of tinge to it. And then I'll show you what else I do to kind of add other things to that. So what we'll do is, we're going to go ahead and, you know, place the pigment where we want the crystals to go. So the first thing I do is I put my resin down in that spot. So again, if you guys are into, would prefer to prep your board with, you know, acrylic paint or some sort of, you know, sealer paint underneath on top of your board, you can definitely do that. And then if you actually plan ahead properly to do something like that, you can make it the color, you know, that you want your crystals. Let's say what you want the underlying crystal color to be. You can actually paint that. So then this way, when you go ahead to put your crystals on top of the resin, if the resin for any reason moves around, which you'll see will happen when I put the crystals on here, you know, you'll have a base color underneath. Now, I personally don't mind when the board or other things show through the crystals. That's just my personal preference. But if you really wanted to say, like, you know, get like a red color or a blue color and you really didn't want any of the board showing, you can definitely, you know, paint that area as well to make sure that you're not getting any of the board showing through. So you'll see here, I'm just adding the crystals on top of where I put the resin, and for the most part it's going to pick up the color of the resin underneath it. It's going to show through. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest. And again, this particular glass is called FireGlass. So it's used for, you know, fire pits and things like that. Like it's actually meant for outside. And if you, depending on the brand and the type you get, you know, some of them are mirrored, some of them are just clear. I like the clear ones again because I'm wanting the resin to show through. But you know, I believe there's other, you know, there's colored ones, there's iridescent ones, there's all different kinds. This one has something on it. So depend again, and I just get mine off Amazon, guys. So if you are looking for it, I know there are definitely some FireGlass companies out there that you can buy direct. When I was originally looking, I didn't know of any company, so I looked on Amazon and I was able to find it from there. And you know, these do come in a pretty big bag generally, so I have quite a bit to use. So I'm perfectly happy with that. And like I said, with Amazon, you know, generally speaking, I can get, you know, my order within a day or two. So the timing works really well for me as well. So, and some of my crystals I've actually already, you know, touched with resin, so they're actually stuck together a little bit. But I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up. Okay, so we pretty much got all of our crystals in there now, and you want to work a little quickly with it just because, you know, the resin is setting as we work through here. You'll see I took a little extra care with this just because with the one thing with the FireGlass is there sometimes are sharp edges, and you don't want the pointy sharp edges to be sticking up just in case someone rubs their hand over the cheeseboard and then suddenly, you know, the glass generally doesn't. It's kind of tumbled, so it doesn't have super sharp edges, but sometimes there are some, so we just want to make sure we're being a little bit careful with that. So okay, so we went ahead and did that, and then what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit more of the white on top just to add a little bit more color so there's not too much of the board showing through. And then I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to pour the rest of or majority of this to kind of get the, design that I want on here. So again, we're only going to be doing the side edge of this board. And then I'm going to keep some, and again, it's going to drip on the edge, but I'll show you what I do about that after. And then what I want to do is you'll notice that I made this glitter pretty thick, and I know that generally speaking, we don't want to do that just because there's, suggested percentages of how much glitter we're putting in our, pigment or glitter that we're putting in our resin. I find glitter, we have a little bit more leeway with that. So I usually, if I want it to not move as much, I'm going to, make it a little thicker. So in this case, I think we're okay with that. Oh, and I dropped some, but there you go. So I'm going to add that in here. We have quite a bit to do more with that. And then we have our other colors. So this is the Martha Stewart glitter that I was showing you earlier. So again, if I just want to add a bit of color to my stones and just don't want to leave them completely white, I can add some of this in as well to just add a little bit more to it. So okay, and then we're going to pour some of our blue. I'll add a stripe of blue on here. And I'm going to do a little bit in here as well. Just kind of have some more white, so I'm going to go back and add more white. And again, guys, I didn't actually plan what this board was going to look like, so I'm really just winging it as we go along here, just for fun, just to see what we can come up with. And I'm going to also, so that same glitter that we put on the one edge, I'm actually going to see if I can put some on this edge as well. Again, you guys can see how thick that is, but so just be careful with that. Like, not all resin might be able to handle this much glitter, so that could be a consideration too. The one that I use is pretty forgiving with me when I, do things like this, so it's not too bad, but I'm not sure if all viscosities of resin would be completely okay with it. So you just want to test that out with the resin that you're using, so this way you're not, overwhelming your resin and then it may not cure properly or things like that, which I think is the main issue of why you don't want to add too much pigment. I think pigment is a bigger issue, especially if you're the type of person who's more into acrylics with your resin, because I know that in my early days when I tried to work with resin with acrylics, I was having those type of issues. So now we have this other lovely color, so I'm just going to go in and add that in a little bit. And the same glitter that we had earlier. And again, the great thing about resin is it's a great tool to just kind of play with and see. I mean, the results a lot of times are always interesting. It's just, you may have something in mind and maybe it doesn't turn out exactly as you wanted, but the results are always, always very interesting. And this is the iridescent that I mixed up earlier. And that I'm going to actually add more of that to my crystals on top, just because it's going to give a really kind of nice reflective look to my crystals. And again, I'm only going to be doing the base layer on this. Like for me, would be enough for what I would want to do. If I was going to add designs to it, then I would do that once it's cured, and then I would paint on top of it and, you know, finish it off with sealing it after I've finished all that. But for a lot of, especially geode artists, this would be considered their base layer, and then they would come back in once this is dry and then add, you know, another layer of resin on top of here to, you know, make it more dimensional, more interesting, things like that. So that's what you want to, depending on what you're looking for in terms of the style. You'll see that this looks like it's a little bit heavy on here right now. And once I add some heat to it, it's going to thin it out a little bit. So, and again, a lot of artists don't add a lot of heat from the stage, or they just use their torch. I do add, just because again, I like mixing my colors a little bit more. So I do add the heat so that it gets mixed a little bit. But, oh, actually I wanted to put some of this through here as well. I think it's going to look pretty cool. Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention at the beginning of this pour is to make sure your board is level. I do normally try to remind you guys of that. So you just want to make sure you've, you know, taken an actual level. I've sat my board up on some containers, so this way it's up off the silicone mat, and then I level it to make sure that it's you know, the resin's going to sit where I want it to sit, and it's not going to move around too much. So and that, I think I lost some of this glitter. Put that back in there. Okay, so we have something that looks really neat right now. Let's give it a little bit of heat. Okay, so we gave it a little bit of heat, and then we had some stones move a little bit, which does happen sometimes. You just want to make sure we're getting those back in from the edge. And yeah, so there we go. So again, like I said, if you wanted to have more detail, like you wanted to add more streaks of maybe silver pigment or anything else on here, you can definitely do that. I would wait till this layer dried, and then I would go back in and add another layer of pigment on top of this. Like again, I would normally, this wouldn't be a finished piece for me. It would then get some sort of design painted on it, but everyone has their preference in terms of how they would want this. I mean, this definitely could be a design on its own if you chose that it was finished from this point. So again, I like to play with the resin, guys. So usually I, am fiddling with it for quite a while after I've poured it, just to kind of, see what else I can do with it, see if I can get, some interesting streaks and lines and different things happening in here. So don't be surprised if if I spend some time here doing that. Okay guys, so I think I'm done playing with it for now, but I might actually still do a little bit more. I think I want to add a little bit more of those iridescent pieces into this centerpiece here, so I might just do that off camera. But in any case, this gives you a good idea of what you could do on a board like this. And so a lot of you, I'm sure, are wondering what happens with all the drips. If you've seen any of my resin pouring before on a board, you'll know that I do usually get a lot of drips on here. And what I do, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know what I do with it. But so I have molds like these, which are, you know, this is my lotus mold. I also have some crystal molds. So I have, you know, one like this. And normally what I'll do is I'll just literally, you know, pick up the, hopefully you guys can see it on camera, but I just pick up the resin and I dump it into one of these molds. I actually decided I want to put it into this lotus mold, so I'll just, you know, literally pick it up and just start putting it in there. So I just, while it's obviously still wet, you don't want to wait till it's started to get too thick because then it won't settle properly. But so I literally just kind of do this with all of the excess resin that I find on the edges. So, and then usually it's a pretty cool effect just because the resin, the drips have already started to mix with each other, so it kind of gives a really organic mix instead of, you know, trying to pour directly into the mold itself. Sorry guys, you're gonna get like shots of my arm and stuff here. So again, I'm gonna finish that up. It's not quite full yet and I still have more drips around here. So just to show you what I do with my resin drips, I know that there are some really other great products coming out where, you know, you have molds like this or, you know, more flat ones, and then a lot of people will just lay them under the board while they're pouring, and then the drips automatically just go in. So those are options too. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can deal with them, but I really like the idea of not wasting too much resin, just because A, it's expensive, and B, you know, if you can make something useful out of something, why not? So in any case, that's it for this pour here. It's actually doing some really neat things right now. It's kind of giving that really neat kind of geode agate kind of streaking happening here. And then again, with the stones, they have a really pretty iridescence to them. So in any case, guys, that's it for that. And we'll see what it looks like when it's all done.
Alright guys, so there you go. So that's how I add crystals to my boards. Again, I just use FireGlass and I color it to whatever I need. This technique may not be for everybody. Some people might prefer to try something else, another way to maybe color the stones first or see what they can do with that. I've heard that some other artists use alcohol ink. I have never tried it, so I don't know for sure if that would work or not. But again, there are other options out there to see, you know, what works for you. This works for me and I really like the effect. I like a little bit when the board shows through, and it doesn't always. Like with white, sometimes it shows through, but when you're using darker colors like blue or black or red or, you know, burgundy, things like that, purple, the board will show that, like the board will show through less just because there's more pigments there to kind of cover it, as well as, you know, it's darker, camouflages a little bit more. So again, so try it, see what you think, and you can let me know if you like it. If you do, for sure tag me on Instagram so I can see what you created and how you did with it. And again, I'd love to share your work in my story if you want to share it with me. So in any case, I'll get some pictures and videos of this once it's dry, as well as unmolding that lotus mold that we kind of put the extra resin into, and so you just can see how that turned out as well. But anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that again, thank you to all my patrons and all my supporters and followers. You guys are amazing. You know, I get so much encouragement from all of you, and I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.